a reward for any information on this case.
Well, how would you like to collect $14,000 a month for life in retirement? Believe it or not, it's possible under Minnesota's pension plans. It's legal, and it's a promise that the state made to its workers. The question is, can you, the taxpayer, afford it? For months, we've been adding up the costs of a system that some say needs major reform, or it could go broke. Kenneth Young is number one. He's at the top of the list. Young, a former Hennepin County employee, collects the highest annual pension of any retiree in Hennepin County, $183,000 a year. David Landswork was the superintendent of the EYEWITNESS school district. He collects the highest annual pension for a retired educator, $176,000. Retired public workers from all walks of life collect six-figure pensions. We counted 312 six-figure pensions in Minnesota as we checked the records of the three biggest state pension programs. We looked further and found 165,000 Minnesotans received a total of $3.4 billion in benefits from state and local pension plans in 2009. Here's how a pension works. Important to know because you help pay for it. An employee contributes 13% of their income to a pension. Their public employer contributes 14%. The money's invested, and the gains from those investments make up the remaining 73% of an employee's promised pension. If the investment return doesn't match or exceed what's needed to make up that 73%, the money has to come from somewhere. Right now, the state is $246 million short of that difference. On a yearly basis, taxpayers make up the rest. One more thing, public employees are guaranteed a return on their investment, 8%. That's down from 8.5% last year.
They can't keep doing this indefinitely.
Jim Tobin with Taxpayers United of America studies public pensions, including Minnesota's.
They just can't continue to expect us, we taxpayers, to pay, and pay.
Richard Moss is a typical pensioner. He's a retired teacher from the Robbinsdale School District and collects $30,000 a year in retirement benefits. He says he contributed more than $300,000 to his pension during his career.
It's just a promise between me and the pension fund. They got my money, now they start paying it back.
When the economy crashed in 2008, lawmakers made some reforms to pension plans.
So we reduced our overall cost by $6 billion by lowering cost of living adjustments and tweaking other benefits.
Those reforms don't stop a select group of people from earning 2, even 3 public pensions. It's completely legal. We knocked on doors, sent dozens of letters.
I've got no comment, I'm retired now.
And found many of them reluctant to talk about doubling or tripling up.
It was part of negotiated contracts.
Only Ramsey County Commissioner Tony Bennett would sit down with us. He collects $54,000 a year as a retired St. Paul cop. Another $17,000 a year for his time as a state legislator, and now earns a salary of $84,000 a year as a commissioner. When he retires, Bennett will collect a third pension that he's entitled to. That makes him what some call a triple dipper, something opponents raised when he ran unsuccessfully for re-election as a county commissioner earlier this year. He says this to his critics.
I don't begrudge any police officer or fireman or soldier today that's getting a pension from anything and what they've had to go through.
How many double or triple dippers are there? We looked, checked, can't tell you. The state doesn't keep track. Minnesota's pension system is running to catch up with its commitments.
I wish the general public were more tuned in.
As a state lawmaker, Representative Maury Lanning sees potential trouble. Look at this recent Pew Center study and you'll see why. It reveals Minnesota pensions are 80% funded. That means for every dollar paid to a Minnesota pensioner, the state is 20 cents short.
If we don't do the right things with regard to pensions, the taxpayers are going to end up having to pay more in the future.
Lanning thinks the state needs to look at lowering the rate of return promised to state employees.
For each pension fund.
Lawrence Martin oversees pension law at the Capitol and helps write it. He sees 2 options.
Either the members or the employers are going to have to pay more. For the state, it's going to be additional taxes on the things that the state typically taxes, income and sales. In local government, it's typically property taxes.
Critics of public pensions suggest a private sector solution.
And the new hires need to be put in Social Security and 401ks that will eliminate all unfunded liabilities for the state in the long run.
It had a tie then.
Even retired teacher Richard Moss agrees. In order to keep the state's pension plan afloat, change has to happen.
It's just the longer they wait, the bigger a bump it's going to take.
Now, the pension protagonists say that employee contributions need to increase even more, suggesting a 10% increase on top of what they already contribute. Now, any changes would take legislative action, and the question is, do state lawmakers have the stomach to take on such a touchy topic? One outgoing state senator tells me that he anticipates some legislation to be proposed this session, but don't expect to hear about it until after the election. We've created an extensive special section of KSTP.com on the subject of pensions. There you can find lists of some of the top pension earners and some of the data that we use to put this report together. Now, tomorrow, convicts cashing in. You won't believe who else is getting big pension payouts. Felons. It is legal, but is it fair?
All right, well, new safety questions tonight are being raised with hundreds of people sick with fungal meningitis.